All right, my friends, Mike Walker here, back with you and a new lesson. Now, this is going to be an important one. This is where we actually get out in the field and we start doing some work. All right, we've been applying a lot of stuff. We've been reaching out to the market by this point, but let's quickly recap where we are here in Module 5 during the launch phase. All right, so we've talked about personal branding, the importance of showing up as a professional in the marketplace, what that looks like, how you want to be presented, how you want to be received by the marketplace. This is a critical component. Now, we also then went on to lesson 2 and combined that with clarity of activity versus productivity, specifically the KPIs that you need to look for and consider and monitor daily for your business. It's one thing to be busy and run around and feeling like you're doing something. It's a whole nother thing to actually be moving the levers that are going to directly translate to your success in the marketplace as a consultant, as a coach, as an expert in your craft. There are those key performance indicators. Those numbers need to become like the lifeblood of your DNA as a business owner. You need to know those things. You need to actually feel them every single day so that you start to become aware of where the business ebbs and flows. And they will vary over time. You're going to find like, wow, I'm really doing well in this particular area, but this KPI has started to soften up. Then you put your attention over there and you're just constantly iterating, constantly looking to improve and optimize the different numbers, different data sets that are coming into your business on a regular basis. So we've taken your personal branding, we've combined that with clarity of what success actually looks like in the field, what numbers you want to be monitoring, and we've combined that also with hyper organic marketing, basically taking everything that we've created from module 1 all the way up till now, combining it all, and then deploying it out into the marketplace with messaging, with content, with value-based propositions, all the things that are going to stir up conversations for you in the marketplace. Now, here's the cool thing. We've now created attention for ourselves. We are positioning ourselves out in the marketplace as professionals. We're presenting our offer. We're talking about it. We're creating content around it. Now what, right? Well, I'll tell you what's next, and that is creating buyer conversations. We've started the dialogue. We're starting to build relationships. We're starting to get known out there because we're out there talking to people in real time, asking them what they care about, asking them what they need. We're getting out there. But now we're going to start to hone those conversations into a whole nother layer. We're going to start really drawing out the people that are particularly interested to take action. They actually want to move. There's going to be a bunch of people in your world that you're going to communicate with that like the idea of improving, that like the idea of your services, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're ready to go right now. Okay? So we're going to talk about what that looks like, how you can distinguish who's ready to go now, and how you move forward with those types of conversations. So lesson 5.4, here's what we're going to cover. The know, like, trust sequence. You may not be familiar with that terminology, know, like, trust, but it is a very common kind of vernacular in the marketing world, but it holds truth. And so we're going to uncover exactly what that looks like in your business. We're going to talk about consistency, credibility, and relationships, all the things that we've been cultivating and harvesting. Now we really want to draw out and benefit from some of the work we've been doing in terms of engaging our market like we started to back in module 3. Then we're going to talk about direct outreach best practices. What does that look like so that it feels authentic, that it feels, in alignment with your core values and how you want to operate as a business owner. We're going to then look at the math of stranger to client conversion. What does that actually look like from a numeric standpoint? How do you know if you're on track? How do you know if you're off track? I'm going to give you the exact numbers that you need to know so that you can understand this process of taking organic conversations and converting them into paying clients. And then your sole objective, I don't want you to overthink this. You're going to have to obviously get to the end to find out what that is. But your sole objective, this is a very big deal. Let's move on. So the number one most important metric in your business is how many conversations you had today with your prospects. And yes, I quoted myself on this one. It's one that I've had this Post-it literally on my desktop computer onto the little side here. I'm literally looking at it right now, and it's a little handwritten note to myself. The number one most important metric in your business is how many conversations you had today with prospects. That's it. That is it. If you had to distill all the metrics, everything that you could possibly need to measure in your business on a daily basis, it would be this one metric. How many times are you talking to somebody that can tell you yes or tell you no? That's it. And if they tell you no, great. If they tell you yes, great. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that you are putting yourself out there to be, in a position to win, in a position to help other people. That's it. All right, now let's dig in. You can have the best product or service in the world, but if no one knows you, you're stuck, right? So we need to have the know thing figured out, which is why we've been talking about hyper organic marketing and creating an entire strategy around putting yourself out there in the marketplace. You need to be known. And that needs to be a clearly identified audience, right? We're not just trying to be famous and have a lot of followers. We're trying to have a very concise group that we are positioning ourselves in front of. Now, once you have that, you need to be liked. You need to connect. So people engage with those that they like. Your message must connect at an emotional level. And that's why we've talked about the message and unique service proposition, all the things that we've been discussing up to this point. You need to be positioned in a way where your message actually resonates with the people that you're wanting to connect with. And then lastly, people buy from those that they trust. The business of business is relationships. And this is why your personal brand and the relationships are such a critical component. These all have to blend together to form that know, like, trust sequence so that people can go from just knowing who you are, learning enough about you to actually begin to like you, and then like you enough and see you around enough to build the confidence and trust to then take action with you and buy from you. That's really how it works. How to create trust? Consistency creates credibility. Credibility creates relationships, and relationships create customers. That's it. As a consultant, your job is to show up consistently in the marketplace, provide value to build credibility, and then nurture and cultivate those relationships into paying customers. That's the business of business right there. Now let's move on to direct outreach. What does direct outreach mean? Direct outreach is simply sending a direct email, Facebook, LinkedIn message, whatever it may be, to somebody you think is a good fit for your services. That's it. It's very simple. Now, what's not simple is necessarily creating conversations with that direct outreach, right? Like, how does that feel? How do you position yourself? How do you not just look like you're spamming people? All those things, right? Well, you remember back in module 3, we have this guide here for you, conversation starters. So we're going to revisit this, but we're going to dive deeper into it now. So I'll provide it below this video again, just to make sure that you have it in hand. And here, what we're going to do is dive in a little bit deeper. Now, you remember back in module 3, we were all about just surveying the marketplace. We're just trying to get a feel for who's out there, making sure that we truly understood our market. And that's where we use the market analysis survey script, right? Because we're really trying to get that survey filled out, get people telling us what it was, in fact, that they cared about the most. That's what this page was all about, okay? So let's move on beyond that, though. And this is now the outreach script. And this can be used text, direct message, email, etc. And it will vary between, format, obviously, if you want, depending on if you're on LinkedIn or Facebook or, text message or, again, even email. These are just prompts, okay? This is supposed to give you the feel. And what I want you to focus on here is not so much the exact words that we're using, it's the general positioning of how we are trying to convey and how we're trying to connect with people. So message 1, for example, is just focused on introduction and value proposition. And I won't go through this verbatim, but you can see here that we've created some brackets. So you would naturally want to customize each and every script here that we have for you, each template, and make it your own. Again, people can smell a templated copy and paste spam message from a million miles away. So you're going to want to spend time with this so it feels genuinely authentic. And again, like I've already said multiple times previously, WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? That's what they're going to want to be. That's what they're going to be thinking about. And that's what they're going to want to know when you start reaching out to people. And so you're going to want to kind of think, now, what would I have to say? What would I have to provide that genuinely shows that I'm interested in helping this person, or that I'm just genuinely interested in connecting with them, and I'm not necessarily just trying to pitch them on my wares and my goods, right? So message number 1 is all about introduction and value proposition. Message 2 is the hook. This is where you create somewhat of an open loop, or at least make sure that you're reaching them at a good time. Again, you can read through this, reword it the way that it's, should be yours. Message 3, discovery and challenge question. This is where you start to dig in a little bit deeper. You start to understand where they're at, what they care about the most. Message 4, connect and position. Message 5, verify and clarify. Again, these are just prompts to get you going. Now, granted, if you were to write an email, this wouldn't be so much the same, right? Because you're not going to go back and forth with multiple small 1 or 2 sentence emails necessarily. You could, but ideally your email might come off a little bit differently than your than a text message would. Obviously, text and DMs are designed to be purposely as short as possible, just because no one wants to read a novel in their phone. And so that's where these have been framed. But again, you could take every single one of these and craft an email that would be similar to this. And each of these steps is a sequential step in the conversation. It's designed to keep the dialogue going back and forth, not just you hitting them with a bunch of questions or a bunch of information right out of the gates. So there's very much of a discovery phase happening. And then message 4, connect and position. Again, I'll let you read through this. I think you'll pick up fairly quickly what it is that we're trying to achieve with each of these messages. And the message 5, verify and clarify. And the message 6, offer value, right? And just really connect with them on that level. Again, spend time with these. This is your homework. By the way, this is something that you'll definitely want to spend time with. And like we talked about before, version 1.0, use it, batch it in like 5 to 10 and send it out to about 10 people. And then based on that feedback, you can then go, okay, well, that's not quite working, or I want to change this or I change that. And then you make a version 2.0 and keep track of those changes. So you'd want to make a whole fresh copy of this conversation starters deck, and then just, edit whichever parts you want to change, maybe make them a different color. And then that is your version 2.0. Try those out for a little bit, figure out what's working, what's not working. It's just very sequential. You don't need to worry what's going to work or what's not working for message 2 if no one's replying to even message number 1. Right? So again, once you get message 1 feeling good, you like it, then you move on to this one. Okay, now what should I say? What can I do? What can I offer that would make this genuinely authentic to my brand, to how I want to communicate with my prospects? And then you move on to 3 and just sequentially step through it. Okay. So you'll move through there. Those are this is a 6 message sequence. It doesn't have to be 6. It could be 5. It could be 4. It could be 10. It's up to you. But again, this will give you the general psychological flow that we're taking people through in terms of just simply connecting with them and truly validating if we can help them. Remember, we're not here to sell them. We're here to serve them. So if going through this messaging it becomes very clear, like, wow, I have no idea how I'd help this person, or I don't have anything to offer this person, then you can move on. Plain and simple. It's not about like, I'm trying to sell every single person here. It's just about getting clear. Hey man, who are you? What are you doing? What do you care about? What are you working on? All these things. You'll see it very clearly as you read through the script template here that it's pretty straightforward stuff. It feels very human. I've also included here, just as kind of a side bonus for those that it may apply to you. A lot of people are really interested in getting, featured in podcasts or getting in on stages or speaking on a Zoom call or a conference call, things like that. This is a basic outreach script that you could use to do that. Again, you definitely have to customize it to yourself. This is one way that you could do that. Getting on other people's podcasts and on their stages is obviously an exceptional opportunity to position yourself as an authority in your marketplace. So if you can do that, if that's of interest, if that's actually in alignment with how you want to, present yourself in the marketplace, then I would strongly encourage you to consider creating a outreach script that would be designed for just doing that. And then lastly, here are 12 principles of effective outreach messages. Again, just read through these, get familiar, permission to ask, don't assume anything, demonstrate social proof, demonstrate problem understanding, et cetera, et cetera. I'll let you read through these. Just some really good, fundamentals to understand when you are in that direct outreach process. And as we wrap up, 2 proven connection request scripts. So these could be sent as, on LinkedIn as a connection or on Facebook as a friend request, et cetera. And these have been proven to work quite well. But again, as with all things, make sure it feels unique and honest and genuinely connected to like you and how you would come across just talking to someone in face to face. Okay. At the end of the day, that's the stress test is, would I actually say this to somebody in person? If not, or if you wouldn't phrase it that exact way, then don't put it in text that way. It's not going to work. Okay. So be authentic. And here are 4 examples of first message scripts to send to people. There's 4 different ones. There's a congrats script. There's a demonstration of understanding script. There's a saw your business script and a background story direct to intro call. This is the most direct one because this is literally where you just kind of connect with them and then ask them straight up, hey, would you like to get on a brief call? That would be a very direct methodology, but that can work in some environments. Some people don't feel comfortable doing that, or they don't feel that their ideal client would, their level of sophistication would suit for that. That's fine. But there's just 4 different options here. Read through them, decide what feels right to you, what feels on brand, and you can then customize them and use them for yourself. Okay. So these are, again, conversation starters. Get familiar with this, because if you're not creating conversations, you're not going anywhere in business, right? Excellent. Now let's move on. Best practices: iterate methodically, like I've talked about, Rev A, Rev B, etc., or 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. Be methodical about this. Don't just go, oh, I tried it 5 times and I got this result, and so I'm going to start all over with it. Be methodical about it. Be very thoughtful with how you track your messaging, because you're going to use this messaging, and eventually someday down the road, you may very well actually have your scripts and your templates like I'm providing you today. You may have these all dialed in based on what's been working for you, and you're going to hand that over to somebody else, and they're going to start using it for your business. And then you can focus your attention somewhere else. Okay, so remember, you're doing this now for you, but you're doing it in the future, or rather for somebody in the future. So spend time and do it right from day one. Batch messaging tests in groups of 20. I always like 20 just because it's a true data set. It's enough people to know definitively, 20 after 20 people, I'm now averaging this result. That's usually enough math to be able to tell you what's working, what's not. You send it to 5 people and say, oh, that didn't work, or this worked really well. You have no idea. That's not data. That's just 5 randomly selected people. Okay, so put your test out in batches of 20 before you make any kind of definitive decisions one way or the other as to whether something works or it doesn't work. Number 3, understand the stepstone approach. This is critical, guys, especially in the direct outreach on like text and DMs and stuff. A lot of people make the mistake of just overwhelming people with content and words basically right out of the gates. And I want you to understand that, like a stepstone, say we were going to cross a little stream, right? You have these stones that are strewn across the stream, and we're just going from one stone to the next. That's how you want your dialogue to be. Your first message is not trying to get them to go from one side of the stream all the way to the other side of the stream all at once. It doesn't work like that. No, your first message is just to get a reply. Step 1, just get a reply. Just get them to engage, right? Once that happens, now you can focus on the next step. Well, let's connect a little bit. Let's actually have a meaningful dialogue. And so you're just stepping forward. Every message you send is not trying to, close them right there or anything like that. It's just a very methodical, what do I need them to do next? What do I need to provide for them to take just the next step? That's it. Every single message, what's the next step? Track your results. I will be introducing you to the business dashboard here next module, okay? In this lesson, we're gonna go over the math. I mean, what's really cool is that in the next module, module 6, I'm gonna actually show you some really cool systems for tracking this like a true professional. So just know that we're gonna be diving into that soon. Now, we'll end with understanding the math of direct outreach conversion. That's a critical component here, because it's one thing to have like a general idea of what you're doing out there in the marketplace. It's a whole nother to actually track it and then be able to look at the data and definitively know one way or the other whether you're hitting your stride or you need some work in a particular area. Let the numbers tell you. This isn't about guessing. This is about using raw math to tell us if we're on track or not. I'll show you right now exactly what that looks like. So let's dig in. So remember, direct outreach, LinkedIn, Facebook, email, text, whatever it is, you're just sending a request, just making a general introduction, right? Once they've accepted that, whether that be on Facebook as friends, connections on LinkedIn, or they just simply reply to your email, etc., you've now added somebody into your field of influence. They are now part of your ecosystem, your list of people that you're connecting with. You're going to have different messages. Again, depending on what platform and what your strategy you want to deploy, you're going to have varied number of messages with those people. The goal of those messages is to get offline and onto the phone. You just want to create conversations. Remember what I said at the top of this lesson? The number of conversations you're having, that's what matters. Okay, now these introductory calls can then drive towards actual sales calls. This is a little bit nuanced, but I'm going to go into it here because I don't want there to be any confusion. There is what we call a 2-call system, like what we're looking at now, which means that you have a very brief, kind of more introductory call, kind of exploratory call, typically 10, 15 minutes at the most. Okay, there's all kinds of different names, executive calls, intro calls, all these different things, brief chat, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. It's an introductory call. You don't go into your program or service in any kind of real depth. It's purely just a true, honest to God, like sitting down and meeting somebody for coffee type thing. That's it. You're just trying to get to know them, what they care about, decide if there's even any chemistry there as you as a service or offer provider and them as a customer or client. Okay, that's the purpose of that. From that, it's like, hey, you know what? I actually think there's something here based on what you're telling me. I actually am pretty confident I can help you. Let's jump on another call. We'll talk about it later, but we'll dive more into the details. Does that sound good? Yep, sounds good. Excellent. And then you'd step into it more of a sales call environment. That's a great way to do it, especially if you're selling more higher ticket services, things where it might just require more communication. More relationship needs to be put in place prior to someone making a big decision to work with you. This is a really great structure. Do you have to do it this way? Absolutely not. I know plenty of people that go from direct outreach straight onto the phone and straight into the sales mode, and that's fine too. It really just depends on how you want to approach it. But in the instance of showing you the longer way to do it in the more thorough way, this is what a typical stranger to client conversion process would actually look like. Now, let's actually talk the numbers though. What do you have to do in order for that sequence to work for you in your business, right? Well, let's look at it this way. If you were to do, and you will do, by the way, you will do this because it works, 50 connection or friend requests per day, Monday through Friday, equals 1,000 requests in a month. Okay, so 50 connections. So that'd be 25 on LinkedIn and 25 on Facebook or whatever other platforms you want to use. But 50 per day would equate to 1,000 requests at the end of the month. Now, out of those 1,000 requests that we've made, let's just say that only 50% even accept. Like they don't even, half of them don't even engage with us, which would be acceptable. Okay, so that means we have 500 new connections that we now have in our sphere of influence, in our connection database, and we're ready to go. We've got 500 new people over the course of the month. Now, let's say if only 20% of those even respond on any other meaningful level, meaning, yeah, they connected, but then it just kind of dead ended there. That's going to happen for sure. Let's say that only 20% of those people actually responded in any kind of meaningful way. That means we have 100 responses at the end of the month. Out of those 100 responses, let's say that only 20% of those even get onto an introductory call, just like exploratory. Hey man, yeah, it'd be great to get to know you better and learn more about your business. What are you doing? Or, again, the dialogue is going to change based on what industry you're in, obviously, but you get my point. We've gone from 100 responses, and if only 20% of those actually engage into getting an introductory call, we now have 20 calls that we've done that month. Now, what if only 20% of those turn into sales calls, the next call? Okay, so that would be 4. We'd have 4 actual sales calls that have derived from our outreach at this point. Now, if only 25%, 1 out of 4 closed, you'd have a client. So now, is that exactly the math? That's how it's going to work? No, you're probably going to outreach more. You're probably going to touch a lot more people. I'm going to show you how all this kind of, again, really begins to build up on itself, especially after month 2, 3, and 4. You're going to start having connection requests and people connecting with you based on connections you made 2 months ago. There's this whole cyclical effect that's happening. But from month 1, starting from scratch, could this work for you? And it absolutely does. Like, this would be a very conservative math. And so let's look at it a slightly different way. So again, we go from the outreach request side, right? 50 a day. Let's say only 50% connect with us. We have 500 people now that we're somehow connected with on social media or whatnot. Out of those 500 people, only 20% ever even engage with us on any kind of meaningful way. There's our 100. We have 100 meaningful conversations happening. Out of that, only 20% get on the phone. Okay, so only 20% have to respond in a way that says, hey, let's jump on a call, let's kind of figure out what's going on. It sounds like there might be something here, I don't know, right? Kind of discovery mode. And then out of that, only 4 people, only 20% of those people actually say, this is in line with my interest enough that I actually want to talk again. I want to get exposure to what it is you're doing. I want to look at this closer. And then out of that, a 25% close rate, because you have a very vetted audience at that point. And there you go. There's your new client. Okay. So This is how that math could flow. And again, it'll vary if you do a 2-call system versus 1-call system, and how many messages you send, and what industry you're in, and all the other things, right? But I want to give you a very high level understanding of what this process would look like and what you should expect. Now, here's a very powerful analogy that a mentor shared with me years and years ago. This is probably, no joke, like 15 years ago, maybe longer. Some of you may not even know what this thing is, but these are like old well pumps, right? Where the well goes very deep in the ground. That pipe that we're looking at goes really deep down into the ground to the water table. And if you move that lever up and down, you can eventually create enough vacuum where that draws the water up from the water table and then pours out, out of the spout there. Now, here's the thing about those pumps. You have to go up and down with that lever a lot for quite a while to build up the vacuum to the point where it will draw that water up. Now, depending on how far down that water table is, you could be pumping that thing for 10, 15 minutes, right? Now, here's where I'm going with this. Stick with me. This is a lot like your activity and your productivity in the marketplace. A lot of people, a lot of amateurs, when they're first start, they're going to go up and down with this lever, going up and down, up and down. They're going to do it for 20 days, and they'll be like, I'm not even getting any water out of this thing. This thing doesn't work. It's broken. It doesn't work. I'm out. And then they drop it. They stop moving the lever up and down. Here's a very important thing. With these pumps, if you were to pump it for, say, 10 minutes, but then stop, every time you stop, the water's slowly going to start dropping back down because you're losing that vacuum. Okay, so you have to remain consistent. That is the key, my friends. You must maintain consistency even when you don't see the result, because here's the thing. If we only looked at it from the surface at the ground level, we would be looking at all our activity going up and down, up and down, up and down with this lever, and no water's coming out. So naturally our brain, our fear brain, is going to go, I'm putting in a lot of effort and I'm not seeing any water out of this. This doesn't work. That's the amateur view. The professional view is going, no, I have a deeper understanding of what's happening here. As I'm moving up the lever up and down consistently every single day, water's not coming out yet, but it's being pulled up through this pipe that I can't yet see. Eventually, once you break vacuum and that the water actually starts coming out of the faucet, you can then at that point move that lever up and down with just barely your finger. The pull of the water is actually going to drive the pump itself, and water will start flowing out of that thing very, very consistently without nearly the amount of pressure that's required. Remember earlier in the training series here, we talked about that train, right? And how much energy it took to get the train going. But eventually, once you have momentum, that thing just flies. This is the exact same principle, but in the area of consistency. Like, you must maintain consistency on that lever. Every time you stop, every time you go, oh, this doesn't work because I don't see water coming out, the water slowly starts drawing back down. Then what do you have to do? Get started all over again because you took the week off or whatever, you got distracted, and now you got to start all over again. It's very, very critical to understand this component. I want to impress this visual into your mind because you're going to come up to a resistance. There's going to be periods of time where you're like, I'm putting in a lot of effort with my organic outreach and nothing's happening. I'm not seeing water coming out. If you are an amateur, you will look at the results you're currently getting and go, this doesn't work. You need to understand the lag indicator. The thing that's going to come later is the conversations, the dialogue, the relationships. All the other things are going to come into your business if you maintain consistency. Be consistent, a bare minimum, 50 outreaches per day. Turn that into a habit. Make that a must-hit number for yourself. If that means doing 25 in the morning, 25 in the evening, whatever you want to do, you must make this a habit. And I want to set expectations that most of the return on effort won't be seen until weeks 3 or 4. And that's if you're consistent. Let me say that again. Most of the return on effort with your organic direct outreach will not even begin to be seen until weeks 3 or 4. Why is that? Just like the old, the farmer analogy that we did where we plant seed, we water it. We don't just stand there instantly and go, well, I watered it, it didn't grow. No, these are relationships. These are real humans. These are people out there in the marketplace that need time to get to know you. They need time to get you to see you enough consistently all the time, showing up in the marketplace in order for them to build that know, like, trust factor that is required for them to move from stranger to client. This is a process. It's not magical pixie dust that you just sprinkle on people and go, presto, I'm ready. Doesn't work like that. So you need to be consistent. Do not stop. Even when you don't see water flowing out of the pump, keep pushing the lever, keep consistent. I know I've like repeating myself here, but I can't tell you enough how many times I've seen people break this rule for themselves and then they sit around wondering why they're not, being successful in the marketplace. Consistency by far is one of the biggest issues that people have. And remember when we looked at this graphic, you could have 100 people in the market, but there's very few today, right this second, that would be ready for your service or your offer right now. Very few. But that doesn't mean that there's not others out there. They just need time to warm up. They need time to see you more often. They need to see you showing up in the marketplace. And that's why consistency, and with our hyper organic marketing and the personal branding, all the things we talked about, all this works together to form the picture that is required for you to be, seen as a professional in your field. So your sole objective, remember, all we are focused on right now is simply using organic marketing and direct outreach methods to create conversations and schedule phone calls with people in our market so we can learn more about our audience, refine our messaging, and win a few customers in the process. That's it. Just focus on helping. It's not selling. Don't overthink this. This is critical. Remember, all we're trying to do, connect with people, hop on the phone, get a dialogue going. And during that process, you're going to get better. At first, it's going to be like showing up at the gym and you haven't worked out in years and you're going to be sore. You're just going to feel awkward. You're not going to feel like, this is authentic. You're going to have imposter syndrome. You're going to have all kinds of mental loops going on. I want to frame this for you early, right here, right now. When those different feelings happen, when you start feeling like, man, this feels arduous. This doesn't feel, as fun. These are all good signals. I want you to embrace those signals as a positive. Oh yeah, Mike told me that this is part of the work. Again, remember that pump analogy. At first, it's difficult. After a while, it starts to flow. It will only begin to flow when you maintain consistency. It takes time. Give it 30, 60, 90, 120 days. I guarantee you how you operate in 120 days from now will be far significantly superior than what you do on day one. But you got to let yourself get there. You got to give yourself some grace. You got to give yourself some opportunity to get there. And that just simply takes time. There is no shortcut to this. It's just about doing reps. It's about showing up every single day, reaching out to the market, creating valuable conversations. There is no shortcut here, my friends. Like, that is the work of becoming known in the marketplace. Okay? Excellent. Now, moving on, once we create these conversations, there's going to be some fundamentals about selling. Some people have a very they get really uptight about this, like, I don't know what to say. And they get on the phone and they kind of ums and ahs and they feel very uncomfortable about asking people for money in exchange for the value proposition that they're providing with their service or their offer. We need to break these down. We need to get rid of some of these old thoughts, these old fears that you may have associated to selling, quote unquote. Get those out, and we need to reframe your mind as to what it means to actually sell, what it means to actually exchange value, exchange money for your services. We need to get you built up around that, and I know Taylor's going to do a phenomenal job. So I'll be passing the torch to him on this one. This is a really critical component. You now have everything going into your business that you're going to need to actually create the conversations that you can now convert those conversations into money. This is a huge piece, guys. I'm so excited for you. So dive into that. And once you do, then we're going to be moving over into module 6. I'm going to give you some systems, some tools, some resources that will allow you to scale your business into the future. All right. We'll see you in the next one, guys. Take care.